And welcome to Impact 2023, our continuing conversation. We talk about all different topics from current events to politics to everything. And we talk about it from a Christian perspective. And so, as always, we encourage you to bring in your thoughts, your opinions, your comments, and please feel free to type those into the comment section. And we will address those as they come up. And so, again, this is a conversation. You just don't want to hear me talk. Put in your opinions, and we do. We value those opinions. So I encourage you to put those in. And as always, we hop right into it. Nothing, we don't do a deep introduction or anything such as that. And so let's go ahead. Let's hop right into it. This is a lighter topic, not something heavy, not something that will cause a lot of deep thought. This is something a little lighter because it's football season. For those of you who keep up with football season, you know that college football just happened this weekend. It was the first weekend. Next weekend, it will be the pros. Actually, they start on Thursday. The professional, the NFL, will start up. It's a big sports time of year, not even just football. But in a couple of months, basketball will start up. In a couple of months, hockey will start up. People are playing sports all the time. The fall is coming in. For those of you who may watch this at a different time, it's the summertime right now, ending up. And we're heading right into the fall, which, again, is a big sports season. And so a lot of people will watch sports, but even a nice amount of people will play sports. And of those who are playing sports, we have kids, little kids, a lot of little kids. Now, when I was growing up, a long time ago, most of the sports that you played were in school. And then another amount of sports that you would play would be located in the rec leagues or the, community organizations. And so, nowadays it's switched a little bit. Actually, it's switched a lot. A large number of schools, districts, and school systems have taken sports out. And so they're no longer a part of the schools, especially at the younger levels. And usually you only get into those sports when you get in high school. Why am I talking about sports? This is not a sports show. It's not. The relevancy here is because they've taken sports out of schools. The majority of sports then have become through leagues or pay for play. And when I say pay for play, your parents got to pay money. Or the parents have to pay money in order for the kids to play. Or you have to be in a community organization. So if you want to play baseball, you got to go to the local league, which is normal. You want to play football, you got to go to the local league. You want to play basketball, you got to go to the local league. A lot of the middle schools have taken sports out. And elementary schools, most of them didn't have sports anymore. The question, the topic, the discussion is now that sports are in leagues mostly, and rec leagues up until high school, who should take on that responsibility? The question is, should the churches take on the responsibility of running some of these sports leagues? Well, why? Why would you say that? Why would I say that? So the discussion and the thought process was this. Originally, when you're sitting back and you have sports leagues or sports that are connected for kids, sports for kids that are connected to schools, what you have is you have a connection that is made of academics are placed with sports. Academics are placed with sports, and discipline is also placed with sports. So when you go to school, you have to make sure that your academics are straight, and you have to make sure that your attitude and your discipline, you're being disciplined in school. And then it's connected to whether or not you can play sports or participate in sports. And that was a working recipe. And now they're taking it out. So now you're in AAU, you're in rec league, they don't check your grades. Maybe there's some coaches out there, some programs out there to do, but on a grand scheme of things, they don't check your grades. They don't know whether or not you got suspended from school. They don't even know whether or not you're going to school for real. What's your attendance record and things like that. So that connection has been broken. And I'm pretty sure, and again, I know people will sit back and be like, well, my coach does this or my program does this. your program may be great, but on a grand scheme of things, in a grand scale, it's not about that. It's about participating in the athletics, and that's about it. So when it was decoupled from the schools, you take that away. Well, let me put this together. I think that sports need to be coupled with something. Just having pure sports is just a waste of time. So sports needs to be coupled with education. I really love that idea. But since it's not, should now churches take on that responsibility? So let's look through the good lens or the good side of it. If churches then take on that responsibility, so then you can put that back with discipline. You check with these parents and you make sure that the churches can sit back and kind of put that back on discipline, because they can connect with the schools and they can go the extra mile, because they're not going to be all just about sports. If churches are able to coordinate that with the sports, they can connect sports and church a little bit more, being good citizenry. They also have a connection that I'll explain a little bit deeper in a moment. But you have those connections there on the positive side. And then the detractors on the negative side will say, well, we don't want to connect sports in churches because now you have a religious element to it. What if I'm not Christian and I want to be in the sports league? I'm Muslim, or I'm atheist, or whatever. How is that going to work out? We don't want there to be a requirement of membership or anything like that with churches and sports leagues. Now, for those of you who know, and those of you who experienced it, for years there have been sports leagues connected to churches. Around here in Richmond, around where I'm at, there are plenty of churches who actually operate and run sports leagues. So this is not a new idea or a novel idea. The idea that I'm proposing and we're discussing is whether or not that should be something that should become a bigger thing. More churches run sports leagues. And I'm not talking about the intramural sports leagues, but the sport league to rival AAU. Is that something that churches can get into? As we all know, right now in history, this is one of the times where religion is at its lowest level. The lowest level on record, what the studies have shown, the lowest level on record of participants in church. The lowest level, 2023, is the lowest level of people believing in God. And so going out and reaching out and doing some of the sports leagues may be a way to get back in touch with some of the younger people in the community, and also being able to expose them to the church, not necessarily to bring them into the church. So you see this big giant building and you never know what it is, what it's done. You just see it as you drive by. Now you go there and you participate in these activities, and you also have some opportunity for some other things. As far as I know, none of these sports leagues. Now the rec centers, and they do a good job, but none of these sport leagues, sorry, I'm missing these words, but sport leagues have opportunities for counseling, have opportunities for clubs, have opportunities for after school and other things like that. Now, again, some of the community organizations that are connected to sports leagues do. Comment. How about kids whose families can't afford the sports clubs and leagues? School sports provided uniforms, transportation, and other equipment. That is an excellent point. Excellent point. Because the thing about these other sports leagues is, yes, they cost money. Rec leagues cost money. When you're looking at a football, uniform, cleats, socks, everything, practice stuff, equipment, it costs a lot of money. Many of these sports leagues do have programs and things like that for people who don't necessarily have all the funds. But at the end of the day, if you have no funds, if you have no transportation, it's easy to send your kid to school and then they just stay at school. And then you find a way to get them home, whether they ride with friends and things like that. It is very difficult to get them to come home from school. You then have to go grab them up and take them to practice, bring them back home from practice, take them to get. That's a whole different ballgame. So you're right. What about the families who can't afford it? That's another benefit from the church leagues, from the churches taking on that responsibility and taking it away from these organizations and these sports clubs, because we can provide it in a different manner. We do this as a labor of love. We do this as a mission. We do this as some of our services. We do this as whatever you want to call it for the community versus a money-making operation. And so then, as a reminder to everyone, the question is, should churches take on some of a bigger burden or bigger responsibility when it comes into these sports leagues? So here's what I'll say, and that was a great comment, a great comment. Again, that it looks out for those individuals who don't have the money to participate in sports, in these sports leagues. Again, schools, when sports were in schools were able to supply the equipment and everything that they needed. Now that it's in private groups and leagues, you got to come up with your own money. You can get scholarships if you're great, but what about all the people who aren't great? They're just good. School sports usually do not interfere with time spent at church. That's one of the other great things that we can do. As churches, we can make sure, one, that we don't have sports on Sunday, or we can have it on Sunday during church. Why is that important? I'm going to give you two reasons why it's important. One, gives you the opportunity to go to church. Two, it gives you the opportunity to have a day where you are able to focus in on something else other than the craziness of life. If I'm a kid and I go to sports, where I'm going to school Monday through Friday, then I do sports on Saturday. What do I want to do with my Sunday? More sports? No. Focusing in on God, focusing in on church, focusing on religion is not just a focusing in on God, but it's also a takeaway from all the other stuff that you have on. You need to be able to set aside. You should be doing this anyway, but you need to be able to set aside some time. And I think that having sports in schools or sports in church both allow for Sunday to be not a day of rest, a day of reflection, and hopefully that reflection is in the church, but a day of rest and reflection. Whereas now, man, they run it. You got sports on Saturday, you got sports on Sunday, then you got sports all during the week. And really, it's my personal opinion. I don't think that's a healthy way to go. I like this comment because that's what it does. It doesn't interfere. Schools didn't interfere with church, but church doesn't interfere with church. So if the churches take on this responsibility, or the schools were able to pick the responsibility back up. And so again, the reason that this conversation came up, or this topic came up, is because schools don't have sports the same way they used to. Many locations, many districts, they have taken sports out when it comes to elementary and middle school. And they only have it at high school. And the reason they have it at high school, because at that point, it's a big money maker for the school, and it's a big money maker for the individual students being able to get into college and things like that. But outside of that, you're looking at leagues. And for many of the kids, they still are going to the leagues even when they're in high school. And so I think that the conversation should be had of whether or not the league should be with the churches. Now, let me give you a quick. All right, let me give you a quick story about sports. When I was a little bit younger, or a young man, I did boxing. And one of the things about boxing is that you have a lot of coaching and give a lot of motivational speeches, just like everything else. But in boxing, they give you a lot of good motivational speeches. And the coach that I had, what he did is he came up and he told me this analogy. He said, when you look at boxers, most of the boxers that you see are heavy into their religion. Most of the American boxers are Christians. Boxers who are from other countries usually are Christian or Muslim or are strong in their faith. He said he broke it down that the reason is you look at religion and you look at faith. And what is it about? It's about control, self-denial. You're controlling yourself and you're controlling your urges because you're following what the teachings of your religion, when we'll talk about Christianity, because again, this is a Christian show, you're following the teachings of Christ. And you're denying yourself some of the things that you should not do, that you may want to do, in order that you can follow the faith of the religion. And those things are better for you. Sports are the same thing. He said, you sit back here and you must deny yourself some of the things that you want to do. You can't eat the same way that you would want to eat because you got to keep your body right. You can't hang out all night and drink and party and smoke with your friends. You can't do those things because you need to keep your body right. And this is different in boxing than some other sports, because I know people sitting back and saying, I know people, Michael Jordan used to smoke cigarettes and cigars and drink all night, and he can still be great. One, he's great at sports, and two, it's a different ball game. So it was boxing, so your body's a little different. But he was explaining that discipline is the same that you have to have when you approach your life and your faith. And so that's why I went hand in hand. He was like, what you're doing in boxing or in a sport is that your mind and body start working together, and so that you do something that spiritually you shouldn't be able to do. Physically, your body should not be able to do the things that it can do. But because of your mental and your physical put together, it's some other kind of level. They call it spiritually. Your body can do some things that are absolutely amazing. Same thing with faith. In your life, there's some things that you shouldn't be able to do. But when you put it together, when you follow the word of God, God comes in there and boom, things that shouldn't happen. We call them miracles sometimes, but just in life, period. Some situations happen that shouldn't be able to happen. And so what he was explaining is that there's a connection between sports and religion because your mind and your body, because of your understanding of you're trying to do things that shouldn't be able to be done. You're trying to accomplish things that you shouldn't be able to accomplish. You're pushing yourself to the limit. You're having faith in the ability of whatever. In the sports, your ability of your body, but in our faith, you have the ability or our faith in God. And he was like, they go hand in hand. And so for that reason, he was explaining to me that you are not going to be successful in boxing if you don't have faith in God. And I say this, and that is one of the connections that can be made. At the end of the day, there are some similarities there. At the end of the day, there are some valuable teachings that we can give. And at the end of the day, no one is going to care about these kids the same way that I think the schools and the churches. And since if the schools aren't doing it, where the gap needs to be filled in, I don't think it should be filled in by these different sports leagues and organizations, again, who may be great, may be doing some great things. I think it's an opportunity that the churches didn't take on that I think that they should take on. And there are numerous examples, because there are plenty of churches who have been running leagues for a long time. There are plenty of churches out there who have been, who have gyms and have been, really out there and out front in having leagues. And I think more of us need to do that. I think we need to take it over, honestly, and church leagues and churches should be at the forefront of offering out these sports to these young kids. Man, it's some terrible stuff that can happen. We know how parents act, but I think the church leagues can check some of that. We know that some of the parents out here get aggressive, they're rude, they care more about sports than they care about anything else. But I think we can check some of that. I think we can help with that. You got people out here who don't know how to act when they get out to the games. They're cussing and fussing. Well, we can definitely help with that. And so I think that there's an avenue there that the churches may need to do. Comment. Some churches should embrace sports because of the discipline sports demands and encourages. Yeah. I think the church should embrace sports because of that. Yeah. That connection is there. I think that connection is there. If you have the opportunity to do so, as we know, most churches are small. As we all know, most churches, generally speaking, are not going to have the ability to start a sports league. But the beautiful part about sports is that you're supposed to put your mind and your body together and be able to do some things that you can't do. The beautiful part about churches and the beautiful part about God is that all of us are sitting here with these small churches, and we should be able to do some stuff that physically we can't do. So even though we have a bunch of small churches, maybe the churches need to get together and do some sports. Maybe they don't, and they just need to get together and do some praying and get these sports done. And then all of a sudden, Some people are going to show up because people love sports. People love sports. I mean, you know about the sport or the church softball leagues, those things. Look, as much as they talk about people not going to church, they ain't talking about these softball leagues disappearing because they not. You know, they still have the church basketball rec leagues and everything like that. So I think, you know, this is me talking from the outside looking in because I don't run any sports leagues. I don't. I only take my kids to sports, but I think that an opportunity here is for us as churches, us as Christians, to take on the burden of maybe starting up some sports leagues, especially in areas that don't have the participation in sports, or especially in areas where it's difficult for kids to get involved in some of the sports because they cost money. And so we shouldn't always be looking outside. And and again, to all those people who are running these different programs and these sports leagues, thank you, kudos to you. No complaint about you or the quality of what you're doing. But I think that through the church, I think we have an opportunity to do something here that is going to be meaningful. We have an opportunity to do something here that is going to expose young people to more than just sports. Because I think just sports sometimes is leading people down the wrong path. Sports by itself is not enough for most. You know, you're going to have the 1% of the 1% who excel in sports in life and they can change their whole life, or you have that group who can get to college off of sports and get a great education and, you know, do some great things or make some connections with some people. But for most of us, sports is just an activity that we're going to do that helps us in a variety of different ways. Sports ministry would be a great way for the congregation and the community to connect. Yes, I believe that. I really do. I really do. And I think this is important because as we sit back here, and as I stated earlier, we're at a point where Christianity, where religion overall in the United States, I don't know how it is in the world because I haven't read world reports, but in the United States, Christianity is at an all-time low. Belief in God is at an all-time low. So we need to be able to engage the community even more than we do now. We need to find other ways to get involved in the community. The church can redefine what it means to win and to be winners. The problem with many parents is their understanding of what it means to win. Unfortunately, their understanding is passed on to their kids. Yes. And even with that, yes, that's great. And even with that, understands what it means to lose. If you listen to leaders and politicians and, you know, movie stars or all the people that they, entertainers, whatever, you listen to people nowadays, they sit back here and they're talking about, nah, I always win. All we do is win. Or I never apologize, or I never admit when I'm wrong. I don't take any losses. None of that stuff is realistic. And I think that there are some problematic issues with not understanding what it means to win and be a winner, and not understanding what it means to lose. And that losing does not make you a loser. And so I think some of those, you know, I always point to this, and I know y'all are probably tired of hearing me say this, but I always point to the suicide rates that are going up, that are extremely high right now. And I think it's some of that is that adversity that we're not able to be in touch with, or that these young people are not able to be in touch with. And so we need to learn how to lose. We need to learn how to win. And we need to learn, as it said here, what's the definition of winning and losing. And, you know, if the parents are not teaching them like a really good definition of winning and losing, then the league can. And I don't know that these leagues, that are all about sports are doing it. Yes, the former president was always calling people losers, and that's the kind of mentality that we don't need to have. And church leaders should be able to teach that. And so, yeah, I think it's something to consider. I think it's something that we need to discuss further. As churches, especially if there is an opportunity in your area, to those churches who are in areas where there's really not a strong sports presence, when those churches that are in areas where there is a blind spot, I definitely think that immediately looking towards, what can we do, is something good. To those churches who are in places that are just inundated with sports leagues and things like that, maybe it won't be an opportunity, but it's always an opportunity to sit back here and have or participate in some of those broader um, church sports programs, because every kid doesn't want to play sports competitively. Um, some of them don't want to play at all. Um, and so continuing to have, the church softball leagues and the community softball leagues that the churches participate in, continuing to make sure that you have things like we have here, basketball hoop outside of the church so that people can play on, or if you have grassy area or things like that, having opportunities for just the neighborhood kids in the neighborhood to come in and participate and do little sport activities. I just think that we have a lot to offer from our end when it comes to sportsmanship, what it means to be good to one another, what it means to win and lose, um, and even to the parents that we all come in here. Sometimes we act out of character, and if we come to the church to do our activities, sometimes we'll get a little bit of, you know what, maybe I shouldn't act like that. Whether somebody says it to you or not, you know how people are. You walk around the church and normally you're gonna be cussing and fussing, but you're at church and you be like, you know what, I'm not gonna do that. And then maybe that'll transcend into some other areas where, you know what, maybe I don't need to be embarrassing my kids and embarrassing myself by getting too involved, cussing and fussing and doing all this other stuff. So that's my topic. That's the topic. So as we go into the fall and we go into these sports leagues, I think that's something to consider. We have value as Christians. We have value when it comes into participating in the sports process. We need to show people who we are. One last little comment, and then we're past our time. I am a big sports person. I go to sports bars and will watch the game. So on Sunday, I am sitting here in the sports bar. And what I don't do is I don't go home and change my clothes and then go to the bar. You're like, well, why you don't do that? One, I like my clothes. So on Sundays, I'm wearing, some nice clothes. Maybe I might be wearing a suit. I like how they feel. And I'm only going to get dressed one time for the day if I have to. So I go to the bar. So I'm sitting here in the bar. I've told this story before. I'm sitting here in the bar and I kind of stand out. Everybody knows where I've been. I went to church and I'm still here at the 1:00 football game with the rest of y'all watching. And so for anybody who sits back and say, I can't go to church because I like to watch football, I'm showing you that that's not true. Also, I'm showing you that people who go to church can also be here at the bar. And so I don't know how many times somebody was cussing and fussing and then they bumped in or they turned around, they saw me and they was like, oh, my fault. You don't even, I could have came from a business meeting. Y'all don't even know where I came from. I mean, you can assume, it's Sunday. And so because I'm dressed up, I came from church, but you just being in there, people just assume because I'm dressed that I came from church, and it changes their demeanor and how they going to be. And so that kind of, as Christians, sometimes we need to be out there. You don't got to be in a suit or anything like that, but sometimes you just need to be out there because you never know when somebody needs a moment. When I'm sitting there, we're in the middle of the bar, I get my food and I'm sitting there and I do a prayer. Not the big prayer where everybody's loud, but you see me go down and so you see that Christians are everywhere. You see that Christianity can be a part of your regular everyday life. You see that maybe next Sunday I can go to church and make it to the 1:00 football game. And so I encourage all of us as the season comes on to make sure that we out. Good. All right. That's our topic for today. On Thursdays at 11 a.m., Imani will offer dance classes for adults. Fits into the sports theme. So for those of you who are in the area, and I will put up our address so that you can see, we will have sports classes or dance classes here, an opportunity for people to come out. And so, as we talk about sports, there's other activities as well. We need to get involved in this community in whatever way that we can. And everything that we do, it'll also, I think, benefit people because we can offer more than just a sport or than the dance classes out there. We can offer dance, and then we can offer life. We can offer sports, and then we can offer life. So for all of y'all, again, dance class is here, 11 on Thursdays at this address. Thank you, everybody who joined us. Thank you for all the comments. Again, as always, we're here on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Bible study, 7 o'clock, same place, YouTube, Facebook. Sundays, 10 o'clock, YouTube and Facebook. Please join us. And as always, we'll be here every week on Tuesdays, 8 o'clock for Impact 2023. Have a good one. And please join us again.